And we're back. Season 4, Episode 22, Trade Ya. This is the episode where they have a trading meet where they go and they trade around, and Spike wants to trade stuff, and AJ wants to trade stuff, and Rarity wants to trade stuff, and Rainbow wants to trade stuff, and Twilight wants to trade stuff. And then they do. The end. Oh, also slavery and suicide. No, there's no suicide. There will be a suicide episode in the future. It's just that's a ways off at this point. But, anyways, looking at the notes. The first thing I want to talk about is a trade meet. Now, I'm trying to think of where I want to start with this one. The very idea of a trade meet is something that I absolutely adore. You know, swap meet, that kind of a thing. The catch to this kind of a thing, of course, is... I'm trying to think how to explain this properly, so I'm just gonna jump into this. In my opinion, the purpose of a trade meet like this one is not to trade things. These and other amazing revelations here on the left. Yeah, it's networking, exactly. It's the social aspect. It's the getting together and talking to and finding out other people who are interested in the same kind of topics, or just meeting new people, or expanding of ideas, or learning about new things, or whatever, right? It's the connection. It's a place you go to hang out. It is literally more meet than swap. The episode tends to focus on the swap, but you'll notice that the meet is still a very strong aspect of things, and we do see a huge number of ponies there. In fact, you'll notice there are quite a few crystal ponies there too, so people are coming from all over the place in order to come to this one event, which makes perfect sense. This kind of being a big thing, especially since it's apparently a yearly thing, also makes sense. You know, you have the one big meet, which, given how relatively small the Equestria area is, they could manage that. It's kind of the convention thing, right? Oh yeah, there's some financial aspects to a convention. I don't want to dismiss that, but my point is, we had Comic-Con, right? Down in San Diego. And then more people got interested, so we had to have more Comic-Cons. And now we have, I think, like 5 Comic-Cons that happen across the year. How many PAXs do we have at this point? The reason I bring that up, though, is that I get the impression that this is something that, with the inclusion of the Crystal Empire and the future expansion efforts that might happen in the future, they'll probably have to start doing more trade meets than just the one per year. But yeah, you know, you go to the con, you meet people, you talk with them. That's one of my favorite aspects of going to a convention, is interacting with other people of relative like-mindedness. It's the same general concept that MMOs brought to the table, just in person. Right? You know, I've talked about that before. EverQuest was such a smash hit because all of a sudden people who were interested in what at the time was a fairly niche thing were like, oh my god, there's other people interested in this thing just like I am. And there you go. We're social people. We like sharing. We like talking. I'm with it. The irony is the fact that, to really hammer the point in, this trade meet does not allow the trade of money. They have currency. They have bits. That has been long since established prior to now. And bits, well, currency, just to reiterate this on the off chance no one's ever heard me say this, currency is a universally valued third good. That's it. That's all currency is as a concept. It's something that I value, and you value, and they value, and they value, so we can all use it as the medium in between trade. That's its only purpose. There's a ludicrous amount of complexity to that, and people still disagree about that to this very day, but that's the long and the short of it. You don't want this song. Let's switch to a new song. There we go. Anyways, actually, you know what? Do I have that song on this playlist? I might. Here we go. I do not. That sucks. Oh well. Anyways, not gonna bother. So I love that. I love the convention thing. I love the scene of people interacting and socializing and blah 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 blah. Now, I want to add on to that, but let's save that for now. First, I have a story to tell you. Actually, I have 2 stories for this episode to share with you guys. But the first thing I want to talk about is Mint Comics. I remember those. You ever try to trade a Mint comic? The funny thing, in my experience, is I've discovered this over the years, is people are all like, oh man, that's super valuable. It's actually harder to sell that kind of thing than it sounds. Like, if you had a mint copy of Super Mario Bros. 1 right now, you could sell that for a lot of money. But the actual act and the practical application of functionally selling that is harder to do than it sounds. Especially finding someone who's willing to buy it for how much it is worth, which is another thing this episode goes into. So, Spike's approach, trading a mint comic for a mint comic, is fairly basic, but it does get across the point. The only real way to get one is to already have one, right? You'll notice that it's a mint comic, which means he has not read that comic. I had a friend back in high school who, anytime he would buy Star Wars figures, specifically, that was his thing, he would buy 2. Anytime he bought them, he would buy 2 of them. One would stay in the package. He actually had a whole display on his wall. The other he would pull out and play with. So I mentioned I had a story. First editions of books, right? And by the way, that's another perceived thing. I want you to remember the perceived thing. I'm gonna get that in a second. But first edition of books, right? I used to live in Auburn, California. I don't mind telling you this because it was an extremely long time ago. How long ago? Well, they were making a film there back in the day. It's called Phenomenon. Stars John Travolta. You ever heard of that? Now, I was actually there when they were filming. I lived there when they were filming that. In fact, I have actually been to the restaurant that shows up in the film several times. And, you know, I used to hang out in several years, blah, blah, blah. Now, that's not me bragging. I'm just pointing all this out because for anybody who's seen the film, you might have some idea of where I'm going with this. But in the film, they had this book sale thing. So what the filmmakers did was they went to one of the old bookstores nearby, bought a bunch of books, and then stamped them with the fictional name of the library on the underside of the pages, and then had them at the display for like a couple of scenes. Yeah, you probably already see where I'm going with this since I started this tale with the term first editions. So when I say they bought a bunch of books, I mean they just went in and just grabbed piles of books without even looking at them. And they bought quite a few very expensive, very rare first edition books and stamped them with this stupid fake library's name. People were pissed. They paid full price, because of course that's pennies to film production. Like buying a bunch of first editions, that's pennies for the kind of budget they had. But yeah, people were really upset, including my mom. Mom and I actually used to go to the bookstore that they bought them from, and yeah. Anyways, so if you ever watch that movie and you see that scene with those books, remember, several of those are first editions that were completely ruined for that one stupid scene on this one stupid Travolta flick. It's not even a good movie. I was supposed to be in it. That didn't happen. The scene was cut, put simply. Anyways. Films, am I right? So, I'm getting off topic. So, we established the law of the trade meet. All trades must be fair. Fair is defined as both people agreeing to it at point of sale. Very simple. I do like how they establish that right up front, and I do like how a setting like this doesn't really actually have any bother. Oh, I'm getting there, Lord Harriman. Don't worry, that's a topic I want to talk about. So that's the rules. That's the rule, really. It's technically 2 rules, but you get it. Before I go any forward, though, I want to gush about the background of this episode. The amount of cameos and elements and trades and events and ponies in the background that are recurring characters is gargantuan. This is one of the biggest background episodes that we've seen in all of Season 4. Tons of them. I know the feeling, Mr. Ed. I have one too. Yeah, the Return of Rainbow Falls. So, for general background elements as well... So, hang on. So, this is a big continuity episode. We've got... Yeah, I love that too, SA2K. We've got Rainbow Falls. We're just going to loop all the background elements into one thing. We've got the Discord stuff. We've got the book stuff. I think we could probably chop it off there, but I think that's at least 4 continuity counters that are deserve it here. My opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and... Whoops, that's the wrong button. There we go. Push that up to that for all of those, because there's quite a bit. That's probably lowballing it if we're being completely honest, but whatever. Tons of background stuff. Also, the Lutece twins, which I don't actually remember how to pronounce, but did you catch them? The Lutece twins in the background, did you see them? On the off chance you don't know what I'm talking about, there's these twins in BioShock Infinite who are spoilers. I'm not going to get into I'm not going to spoil an unrelated game in this stream, but they're characters in BioShock Infinite. There are two ponies which are very clearly the pony versions of them in the background. You can see it in the scene when AJ and Rarity are first discussing, like when they first get together and like, oh, we should pool our resources. They're in the background there, and yeah, they even had a cage cutie mark. Apparently, Levine even noticed this one. Anyways, this of course brings me to Applejack and Rarity. I don't have much to talk about the initial. I do want to say that those two's friendship has always made sense to me. Yeah, I noticed the dude. And also Elton John is there, by the way. As I said many times before, Rarity and Applejack actually have a lot of connecting points between them, despite their vastly different approaches and lifestyle. And I mention that because you're probably thinking, well, bait, they're opposites. I think that's too dismissive. People tend to be friends because of connecting points, not... But people misunderstand connecting points. They don't... Most people, when they think of this, they think, well, they're the same. It's things that they connect on. That's the whole point of a connecting point. They're both very hardworking. They're both very driven. They both have... Rarity and Dash are actual opposites. That's a great way to put that, SAK2K. Thank you. They both have a great emphasis on family. They both have the connections with their little sisters. They're both business owners. There's actually a fairly large number. I'm missing a few, but there's a fairly large number of connecting points between Rarity and Applejack. So it's always made sense to me that the two would connect. And I've always loved that friendship. It's actually one of my favorite individual friendships of the main six, specifically. And that's true. Applejack, as much as he says he doesn't care about her outfit and her looks, actually does. I don't remember which episode it was, but there's one thing where she's like... pulls out her hat. And it's her hat, right? It's the hat she likes, you know? Anyways. I think that was the wedding episode, now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, it was Canterlot Wedding. Anyways. Point being, I love their friendship. I do. And I love how both of them have the idea, why don't we pool our resources to get something we really want? Because that is actually very logical from the perspective of being a friend, but also from a basic economic perspective. The idea, I'm going to try really hard not to gush too much about the economics of this episode. You guys know I'm an economics geek. But the political side of economic strategic buying and purchasing power is something I could go on about for hours. The idea of, well, I can't do this, but maybe we could do this, and then we could do that, which then benefits you so that you and I both get what we want in a long-term thing. There's just so much to that idea that I absolutely love, and it's demonstrated very simply and very succinctly with Applejack and with Rarity. I was hoping Larian would show up. I was going to ask her something, but I don't see her, so whatever. I want a game about the trade meet. I mean, I could see a game about the trade meet working. It would be very low tier, very low threat level, obviously, but I could see that being a thing. Probably kind of a... either like a Telltale kind of thing, or maybe an RPG kind of a thing. Or like a management sim, you know, like a Roller Coaster Tycoon, except it's the meat, you know. I could see a lot of work done there, but anyways. A board game. That's a good one. I like that. There's Larian. You mentioned you hate Season 4, and I was hoping to ask you what you didn't like about the previous episode. What don't you like about this episode? If you don't mind my asking, because I saw your comment while I was watching it. While I wait for an answer to that. What if the Borg showed up in MLP? Well, then the Borg would absorb harmony, and the Borg would become harmonious. Anyways. Also, the Borg would win. Oh, there was a journal entry. God, I forgot to read the last one. I'm so stupid. I keep meaning to do these first. You guys gotta remember. You gotta remind me. You gotta remind me. There are 2 entries for the last episode. So, really quick. Here's the entry for the last episode. Rainbow Dash finally learned... This is from Twilight. Rainbow Dash finally learned the history of the Wonderbolts, but she's not the only pony who needed a lesson. I needed to learn something just as important. The fact is, different ponies learn differently. Some learn through song, others through visuals. While I am a sit-and-learn pony, I had to put aside my hard and fast rules of learning to discover that Rainbow is a fly-and-learn pony. One way of learning isn't better than the other. Having a different technique doesn't make you dumb. After all, everyone is unique and individual. And then Rainbow has an entry. I was so frustrated having to learn all those dates and old pony names and historical places for the test on the history of the Wonderbolts. I mean, sure, it was kind of interesting to know that General Firefly assembled an awesome team called the Wonderbolts, but the costumes? Why did I need to know about the scoofy, silly costumes? Did I really need to know that General Firefly's was itchy and unattractive? Ooh, I still remember that. Awesome! Still, at first, I didn't see why I needed to do any of that stuff to become a Wonderbolt. Isn't it enough that I'm the most amazing flyer ever? Then I realized Twilight's kind of right. It's really a big deal to be chosen as a Wonderbolt, an honor and a privilege, so knowing that history is actually a really big deal, I'm glad I finally know it. Now if I'm chosen, I can represent those who came before me, flying proud as a Wonderbolt. I could see that, Larian. Especially since, yeah, Fluttershy was just... We'll get there, we'll get there. Well... No, I can't. Dream Whisperer, put simply. I have the book right here. In fact, you may not have noticed, I was doing this. I was playing with it last time just to do this. Favorite episodes, Mr. Red? Well, if you go to the spreadsheet, you can answer that question for yourself. Because anything in purple is a favorite. I'm going to go ahead and read this episode's entry really quick. It's also Rainbow Dash. Dear Diary. Sorry, I keep meaning not to read that. Gosh, I really did want that book. A lot. It was worth more to me than a pin. No, not that spreadsheet. Hang on, Mr. Red. Hang on. There, that spreadsheet. This is where I'm keeping track. I decided to move it online so you guys could see it more easily. Gosh, I really did want that book. A lot. It was worth more to me than a pin or a chalice or an antique chicken or even an Orthros. I even said I wanted that book more than anything in all of Equestria, and I meant it. But there's nothing in all of Equestria that's worth as much to me as a friend. I might have forgotten that for a little bit, but it's true. That's why there's no way that trade could be fair. I'm just glad I finally realized that before it was too late, before I lost one of my very best friends. And I'm glad the Daring Do collector called off the trade, because sure, I would have been the only pony with a complete set of all the Daring Do first editions, but I also would have been a pony with an incomplete set of friends. And my friends aren't just first editions, they're one of a kind. There were hundreds of ponies trading everything from diamonds to dog collars, but no matter what any other pony traded for, no pony walked out of there with anything more valuable than us, because we left with our friends. I'll talk about Pinky in a second, too. I could, Mr. Red. That's actually not a terrible idea. Yeah, Pinky, we'll talk about her in a second. I'm still talking about the concepts, because we got another concept to talk about. It's all about concepts. You guys like concepts? I assume they traded services. I could be wrong, obviously. Let's go ahead and turn this off. Alright, we'll just make a really simple, we'll just call it exclamation point MLP. And we'll just have it paste, and there we go. Boom. We now have an MLP command. Shazam. Where am I? So, Rainbow Dash comes to this meet looking for a first edition of a book, which is very valuable, wanting to trade a rusty horseshoe. Do you mind if I tell you a story? This is story number 2. I told you I had 2 stories ready for you for this episode. There's a video game I've probably talked about before called Asheron's Call. Now, in that game, it was an MMO. It was. It's not really around anymore. Cough, cough. Totally not around. Cough, cough. Totally don't have characters. Anyways, don't know what you're talking about. I don't know anything. I'm innocent officer. Asheron's Call had a lot of items of value, and unlike more modern MMOs, which have concepts such as BOP, which means bind on pickup, I should explain that really quick on the off chance. So, like, if I loot this book in most modern MMOs, I can't trade it. Like, I no longer have the ability to give this to someone else. In Asheron's Call, most items were not that. The overwhelming majority of items, like 99% of items, could be traded. Now, that's awesome for the economy, Because all of a sudden, the economy, it just blows up because now you can trade whatever for whatever. Now, the thing is, you might think, oh, so lots of gold traded. No. No, most of AC's economy was a barter economy. Oh, there were standards of value, and there were things used as currency. Keys were a big thing, because you could use special keys to unlock special chests to get special loot. But other than that, it was mostly barter. Sound familiar? So, I once sat down, and I really wanted a Verindi mask for my character. It was purely cosmetic. It was actually crap armor. But it looked very cool, and I very much wanted it for my character. It was a big deal, and I was way too low level to actually make that happen. But the item actually had no level rec. It was a pretty rare item. I started off with 1 mote. I know you don't know what that is, but allow me to say that while it is a valuable thing, it is 1 and the lowest denomination of this valuable thing. And I spent the better part of a couple of weeks, I want to say, trading. Going through towns and making the trading route between Qualibar and Ayan Bakor, just trading this moat up to Dispel Gems and then over to these Mnemosynes, I think, unlocked Mnemosynes, and just all sorts of stuff. Trading and trading my way up until finally I managed to actually find someone who was willing to trade for a V-Mask. Pretty much the exact same thing Rainbow Dash went through. It was very satisfying, but it was also a wonderful lesson that I've never actually forgotten. And yeah, there's the paperclip to the house guy, of course. But I wanted to share this one because this was a personal story that I actually did, and I don't really know the specifics of the paperclip guy. Bartering can work. See any Zelda game from Link's Awakening onwards. But bartering is a really tricky game and relies almost entirely on you and your ability to actually trade up. And trading up is a relative thing, so you have to trade up relative to what you're going for. In short, the V-Mask was more valuable to me, so I had to trade up to it. But you have to understand that the V-Mask is less valuable to someone else, so they were trading up too, and finding that match, that's a whole thing. The episode, unfortunately, doesn't really address this all that much. Instead, what happens is Rainbow bounces around, basically doing a fetch quest, effectively. She just kind of goes through it. There's still some of the concept there, because it is about personal value and what that individual person wants. But this is a Zelda trading sequence, pretty much copy-paste. I want this, who wants this, who wants this, who wants this, and it's a straight line. That's usually not how bartering works in real life. Still, it's a cool enough demonstration of it, and I do think bartering and personal value are something that needs to be talked about, especially in modern society, which, of course, brings me to the big topic, and I know several people brought this up, relative value. This is something this episode uses as a gag, but is also something very important. How much something is worth to you is going to vary extremely wildly based on what it is and who you are. What is the value of a first edition book, Lord Aramont? Well, nothing, right? To me. No, seriously, I don't give a damn. If it's a first edition or a 53rd edition, I don't care. I understand its value, but I personally do not value that, so you trying to barter to me a first edition thing wouldn't matter. Or how about a rusty horseshoe? Let me use a direct example. I'm going to be very, very careful here, because this is getting old. You see this? It's a dried up flower. This is a gift from my niece. It is quite valuable to me. I imagine this is 100% worthless to everyone in chat and on the VODs right now, because of course it is. This has no value to you. So again, I understand that concept quite well. It's actually sitting on my router because it's one of the safest places for it, because nothing goes near that router. Anyways, right? Relative value. Yeah, the brooch that looks exactly like the other brooch. But, and she says this word, I wrote it down. Where is it? I can't, here it is. I know it's older, and that's what makes it more valuable. She flat out says that. I know that's older, that makes it more valuable. And of course, there's the vintage pie tin, which could cook things a whole 5 seconds faster, which sounds like a discussion of actual practical value, which is a different thing, but it's not. No, that is still perceived value. Practical value is easy to understand. This is practical value right here. I mean, there is still some relative value in carrots, but there is a practical use in food that you can ingest, right? There's a practical value in something that allows you to accomplish a literal thing, right? You'll also notice that once again, that's another connecting point between AJ and Rarity. They both like their own types of things that aren't actually valuable. Traditional versus history. I'm not sure what to call that, but it's a fairly similar connecting point. But the episode makes a very good point about mentioning this relative value thing, and does hammer that point. It's probably the closest thing to an actual message the episode has. The message about friendship being more valuable than material goods, which I assume is the intended message of the episode, is stupid. Because if you get that, you already get that, and if you don't, then you're never going to. Yeah, Spike got what he wanted. Another vintage... I'm out of liquid. Another vintage comic that he can put in his collection. Didn't get it till the end of the episode, too. Anyways. Looking at my notes here. Let's see. So we have perceived value. I already talked about that. The brooch. By the way, I do love the fact that, you know, it's like, okay, I'm going to do the shuffle game. All right, which one is the old brooch? And Rarity says, oh, it's that one. And AJ's like, I love that because imagine the owner being like, wait, which one's the older one? Which one's mine? I mean, it's not like it matters, right? So what's with all the Greek monsters in Equestria? We've already had a Cerberus. Now we have an Orthros. What's with all the Greco things? Oh, it's the same animation as it. Ah, that makes sense. That makes sense. What I gotta say something, by the way. Some people have asked why I don't like dogs. This episode is an excellent example of why I don't like dogs. Slobber. I really don't like slobbery dogs. I don't like licking. I don't like drooling. It actually legitimately grosses me out. Just watching this episode was just kind of like, ugh. What? Jeez. Also, barking. Don't care for barking either. So a dog that doesn't drool and doesn't bark would be okay in my book. Anyways. Yeah, but I don't like Pluto. So there's a whole stand of Discord lamps. Of course there are. I want to point this out. So she starts going through the trading game and she interacts with Stellar Eclipse is the name of the guy. He's the guy in the wheelchair. Voiced by Sylvain Levasseur-Potelans, who actually had spinal muscular atrophy and was in the show as part of a Make-A-Wish thing. Just wanted to comment on that. I don't have anything to add to that. I just wanted to mention it while we were there. He does a decent job. Listen, does Oscar bark or slobber? Because if he doesn't do those things, he's cool. Yeah, he will not be the last. We will be seeing this in the future. We'll be seeing plenty of cameos in the future, not just from people, but actual actors. So, why does the crystal goblet break so easily? Like, could you imagine, like, lightly picking up and that's the end of it? God, that would just be terrible. This is officially when the episode starts to lose me, by the way. This is where I'm kind of with Larian. Up until now, the episode has been phenomenal. It's probably obvious because I've been talking for 28 minutes. And I'm like 10 minutes into this discussion. Or 10 minutes into the episode. But then the episode just kind of starts to drop off. Because it becomes far more about trying to go for the gags and trying to make the absolutely terrible message. As I've already mentioned, the message is just okay. But yeah, there's a lot of joke. Oh my god, the glass breaks down, so now she has to fix it up, and she does a terrible job. But it's okay, he wanted it shattered anyways. Okay. And then Rainbow has to go away, but Fluttershy has to defend the thing, but she's too shy to do so, even though at this point she probably would be able to, and just... It falls apart a little bit. Like I said. This is also a good time to bring up something, though. First of all, this is when Pinkie Pie actually re-enters the narrative, finally. She was going to trade all of her books for a broken pen. This is actually a legitimate strategic concept. It's called trading at a loss. Now, This is not what Twilight is doing, and I swear I'm not going to go all economics geek on this topic. It's just trading at a loss is the kind of thing that you can do if you have some kind of desire to do so. In fact, this is the kind of reason, this kind of idea is why several people I know tend to bring things to Goodwill, or another similar thing like Goodwill. I actually have a very long history of getting some awesome stuff at Goodwills, and so as kind of a, contribute to the cycle sort of a thing, anytime I have stuff I need to get rid of that I know they'll take, I make it a point to take it. Almost every time, no, I take that back. Every time I've moved since 2005, 2006. Every time I've moved since 2006, stuff has gone to a Goodwill, to a local Goodwill, to keep that cycle going. Now you're probably thinking, what does giving stuff to Goodwill have to do with trading at a loss? That is trading at a loss. It is giving, but that is still a trade. The only thing I get in return is the idea that someone somewhere will be able to get that at a cheap price in a way that they will actually be able to use. And I don't give away junk, obviously. It's just clothing that I don't need anymore, or pillows, or furniture, or, whatever. I once gave a mini fridge away to a Goodwill, which I hope it got to somebody who really needed it, which is the whole point. Again, I've gotten some legitimately good stuff. In fact, that coat that I wore for the Babylon 5 stuff? The big old London... I know this is a London fog, but the really big tan London fog? I got that at a Goodwill for $5. That is a legitimately nice $150 coat that I got at Goodwill for $5. Just to name a immediate example. So yeah, you get the point. You get the point. Trading at a loss. It's an interesting concept, and I think that there's a lot that can be said about that, which is why I'm going to cut myself off here. Because, yeah, she just wants space. She effectively just wants more space in her library, which is really funny if you think about it for a minute. End of season 4. Anyways. This then leads to Pinkie Pie, who suddenly turns into the Joker. I'm probably only thinking about that right now because of the fact that I'm going through the Arkham series, but no, really. It's okay. I'm not really doing anything. Or am I? Sometimes even I can't tell. No, that is so the Joker right there. She's even threatening a kid when she does it. Kid was cute, by the way. I saw. Anyways. I agree completely, Larry. Bartering is a fascinating thing for me. And just, like you say, it's just fun. Rather than, because obviously, you could do standards of value, and most barter systems boil down to standards of value for good reason. A third universal good is a good measure stick, and that's what money really is. I've said that many before. This is money right here. But you get the idea. Anyways, I don't want to go all off on that one. What I really want to talk about instead is how Pinkie Pie, well, she does exactly... That's true, Lord Harriman. I'm good at bartering. She does exactly what Flim and Flam did in both of their episodes. She gets greedy. So she talks up the relative value. These are Twilight Princess's books. Okay, no, that's legit. There are people who are going to value that more because they were owned by Twilight Princess. That makes sense. I don't agree personally. I don't give a damn if your bathwater is from some kind of attractive woman. Thank you very much. That's just kind of gross, if I'm being honest. But it is a very common thing for someone to value something because of the fact that it was owned by someone that they know, or someone that's famous, or someone they venerate, or whatever, right? I mean, you guys don't want me to sell this code someday and then make money off it just because it's the code I wore for these things, right? Right? Yeah, movie props. Or actually, I was going to use Star Trek as the example. Star Trek has, and has had since the TNG era, a regular auction called It's a Wrap. And what they do is they auction off, costumes and props and all sorts of stuff in order to just generate money, right? In order to recoup some of the money on that. And quite a bit of that sells pretty well, and that's an extremely common thing. I don't know if they still do that with the Discovery Picard stuff, but I know they did that up to Enterprise. So, okay. It's princess stuff. Then she talks it up by saying it's also from Celestia. Then she really, really talks it up, and then people start offering her things that look pretty valuable. I don't know if they are or not, but the implication is that they are pretty valuable things. Pinkie Pie then says, no, that's not valuable enough. It needs to be even more valuable. Greed. This is the exact same thing that she does that Flim and Flam did. Greed. She reaches too far and it destroys her own customer base. Sound familiar? This tends to happen a lot, even nowadays, with companies, where companies will overreach on their consumer base and hurt their consumer base as a direct consequence of that. Now, that's usually on a company level, and if you actually zoom the camera out a bit, you'll notice that that doesn't happen at an economic system level. Because what'll happen is then that company will lose its customer base, but then some of those people may move to another company, or some of those people to another company, and this other company will pull the same trick, and people will still fall for it, and then they'll lose their customer base, but then they'll move to another company, and the cycle continues. It's kind of messed, actually. But greed is what actually kills the value thing. And funnily enough, Twilight then says, nope, I don't want to get rid of these books at all because you reminded me of how valuable they are to me. It's okay, guys. I'm sure she will keep those books for a nice, long time. Anyways. Yeah, sorry. Being heavy on the foreshadowing there. I apologize. I wanted to be nice and overt about that. Looking at my notes here. So then Rainbow doesn't just think to fly over the people that are in the way, because she's apparently an idiot at this point. And they have to bring out the bear whistle, foreshadowing, which Fluttershy drops, and Rainbow's like, no, we have to keep going. I've been there. Have you ever been there? Might be a thing you wanted, might be a task you were trying to complete, and it's just you've been working on it, and it's been this thing, and you really wanted it. It's just, oh my god, it's right there. Can we just go? You don't want to wait another 10 seconds. You just want it to, it's right there. Now, Fluttershy, of course, doormats over that. But my point is, I can buy that. I can. I have been there myself. And Rainbow has a lot less self-control than I do. Then she decides to trade away Fluttershy's services. This is the one and only definitive service we see traded in this, not unless you're counting the oat burger. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you guys. Check it out. I looked it up. Oat burgers are a real thing. They're apparently really greasy, like really greasy. Sounds terrible to me. This is the best picture I could find, because most of them don't. It doesn't really look like oats. Trust me, this is an oat burger. There's a whole recipe you can use and everything. Anyways, but yeah, this is the only definitive service we see traded in this. Is she's gonna trade away Fluttershy's services for weeks, months, to train this Orthros for this other woman. Yeah, they do show they're greasy. You're right, Imperial Star Destroyer. Which, yeah, many moons. She doesn't even know how many. She doesn't even have an upper limit on that one. That's crossing the line. I can't see Rainbow doing that even as a temporary thing, especially since A, Rainbow's thing is loyalty, and B, this is Season 4. I also can't see Fluttershy just going along with that, because this is Season 4. I know I meme, but the whole selling into slavery thing is just... really? Now, I do want to say one little quick aside thing. This isn't slavery, admittedly, but... Fluttershy being someone who is a pet trainer... Weouts got there before me. Being someone who can help people to learn how to take care of their pets properly, or just animals in general, is actually the kind of thing I think she could do full-time. I don't think this ever becomes a thing. We mostly just see her interacting with the veterinarian thing, and of course she builds that, the animal sanctuary later. But yeah, the only saving grace here is that Rainbow Dash realizes she screws up within seconds. But this is still crossing a line, and, well, here's the final draw for me, and this is what really I enjoy this episode, I do. But this scene, and some of the stupidity in the later half, drags this episode down a full step for me. Because someone making a mistake in the moment, okay. But there has to be some good purpose to that, narratively. What are you doing it for? Why are they making that mistake that you, the writer, have decided? Well, the answer is because we needed to have a lesson about friends are more valuable than things. as I feel like I've already explained, this is a stupid lesson. It's like saying... It's like if I wrote a story about Batman right now, in which Batman was... I don't have a specific, so please forgive me. But like Batman just suddenly acted like a complete moron and completely nearly gets killed. And it was all to set up for a lesson of the week, which is all about the fact that criminals fear Batman. Or something really stupid like that. And it's like, what? So it's a two-punch problem. It's a dumb moment that crosses the line, and it's for no damned reason. Or at least no good reason. So the episode kind of goes, at that point. They even have this big thing where she's like, no, you don't understand, the trade wasn't valid. And everyone cheers, yes, the trade wasn't valid, and they have their final moment on the thing, and that's nice, and all that's whatever, pop up at the end. Rarity gets the rustiest piece of junk that she could for AJ. AJ gets a brooch that she already has tons of for Rarity. Cool. That was a good scene. I do like the bit on the train. But, oh yeah, she also gets like a 8th edition or whatever of the book, which is, sure. I do have one last thing to comment on here. You remember how I mentioned earlier that the law, as established, was really, really simple? All trades have to be fair. Fair is defined as both people saying that is fair at the time of trade. That is called into question in this episode, and that, right there, is why law is a book that's this thick for every county or country that you happen to live in, depending. This is exactly why laws are such a mess, and the ludicrous amount of complexity that can come into real life is something that I'm becoming more and more aware of as... Well, I don't want to get into that, but... Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's no such thing as simple in law. It's not like... I mean, there are aspects of life that can be simple. I have 2 things in my hand. There you go. Right? That's simple. But yeah, the fact is, now this law, which previously only had one clarification, not even an addendum, just a clarification, a definition, now has an addendum that someone can come forward after the point of trade and say, this was not fair after the point of trade. And I want you to think about how much complexity that one change adds to that very simple law. The very concept of refunds is actually a relatively modern one in human history, but is actually a fairly complex topic. And yeah, then you have to add these concepts of time limit, you have to have concepts of being able to prove it, which means you need to establish some kind of judge that can foresee over this thing, which means we have now expanded the services of the actual princess who's overseeing the event. This one little change, that's law in a nutshell right there. Right there. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing, and it's fascinating to think about, and also kind of horrific. That would actually make perfect sense, SI2K. Alright, Twilight Sparkle, you're a princess. And now I never have to go to that stupid thing ever again. Oh, thank God. That's all I got. Ladies and gentlemen, I do hope you guys have, in fact, enjoyed. Making sure the counters are all up to date. Double checking here. Looks like we are up to date on that. So I'm going to cut off the local recording.